we hear from a new MP, someone elected to the House of Commons at the last election. There were 140 of them, so who are they all? This week, it's the MP for Bassetlaw, Brendan Clarke-Smith. And he didn't just break the red wall when he took the seat from Labour, he smashed it to pieces, recording the biggest ever swing to the Tories from Labour at any election. Welcome to the programme, Mr. Clarke-Smith.
Good morning, Tom. Thanks for having me on.
And how about that for an introduction? They don't get better than that.
It took me a little by surprise as well. I was very hopeful and thought I had a good chance of winning, but certainly not by the size I did in the end. And then just looking at the historical context behind it was even more pleasing.
Well, we'll get to that. First off, let's go back a bit. You grew up on a council estate in Nottingham. You were the first member of your family to go to university. You then became a teacher, and you headed up an international school in Romania, I think, where you met your wife. Now, that is not the average Tory MP's CV at all. So what came over you?
No, it's quite an unusual one. So I've been involved in politics for a long time, and I was a councillor for my council estate from quite a young age. I fancied a bit of a change, went abroad and grew up, as they say. So, got married, and my wife's Romanian. She's a doctor in the local hospital now in the UK. In my constituency, moved on after that to Norway, so my little boy was born there. So, we've got quite a diverse background as a family, but I've always been a conservative from that point of view, and I've always believed in things like hard work and family and a lot of those traditional values. And it's nice to be able to back in the UK after that time with that extra experience, and now being able to go to Westminster.
When did you first want to become an MP then? You said you've always had those beliefs, but when did you actually decide you'd run?
Well, I think when I was younger, I grew up watching Spitting Image and The New Statesman and all those kind of things. So I always had that passion that was there. Went into politics quite early as a councillor and kind of did everything back to front almost. So I was in politics before I was actually in teaching. But when I got into teaching, it's something I'm very passionate about as well, working with children and young people. And it gives you a bit more of a direction, a bit more of a perspective on life, I think. And now coming in that little bit older as a member of Parliament, I think the time just felt right for me, really.
Funny you bring up Spitting Image, actually. I mean, that was my political awakening moment in the 80s as well. I think it was hard not to get interested. It didn't necessarily persuade me to run for complete ridicule myself, but good on you for doing it. Someone has to. So look, let's get on to your record-breaking win in December 2019. Not last year, the year before, we now have to say. Mm-hmm. So you took a 4,800 Labour majority and turned it into a 14,000 Conservative one. One question, how?
Well, people say Brexit is the main one. We had 68.3% of people voted to leave in the constituency, so we knew that would be a very, very big issue. But I don't think that quite tells the whole story. I think a lot of these communities have been changing for a while. You can look at neighbouring Mansfield, for example, that turned in 2017, and probably places like Sherwood before that. So it's been a long time coming, but there were also other things. We were knocking on the doors. I think people particularly had a problem with Jeremy Corbyn. I think some of the more traditional Labour voters, and I'm in a former mining area as well. So you'd knock on the door of a lot of the people there, and they support things like the royal family or our armed forces or law and order, tough lines on immigration, things like that. So a lot of those socially conservative values, I think, have always been there, but it's actually taken maybe Brexit and a couple of other things for people to actually give us a chance and look at us as an alternative.
Now, having blown a lot of smoke up the proverbial, I'm going to ask to look back on last week's Sunday Times, when you might have seen an MRP poll, which is one of those allegedly highly accurate ways of polling areas, and they came to the conclusion that the Tories are going to lose 80 seats if there was a general election tomorrow, including some all but 5 of all those red wall seats. Does that worry you, that poll, and is that the feeling you're picking up on the ground right now?
Not necessarily on the ground. I suppose I'm one of the lucky ones that I always seem to come out okay in those polls where I am, but what I would say is you would probably expect the opposition to be a lot further ahead from where they are at the moment. Bear in mind, we're in a pandemic. We've had to make a lot of unpopular decisions. And, of course, with Brexit as well, some of the polls taken before we actually got that done, so to speak. And I think we are likely to get a bit of a bounce with that. So I would expect that to change. But, again, we've got another 4 years to try and turn that around.
But you're quite clear already, are you? I give it to you. Turning around a majority of 14,000, which you're currently sitting on, is not going to be easy. But you've said it yourself. In 2019, you had two massive advantages. Brexit, and in your words, that's just been done. Some debate on that may continue, but it's not really a big voting issue for the public right now. And of course, Jeremy Corbyn is no longer there. What on earth makes you think that those Labour voters, who all might well be socially conservative, but have always been Labour voters, why aren't they going to go straight back to where they came from with those two big reasons now gone?
That's a good question, Tom. I mean, what I would say to that is I still think Brexit could be an issue at the next election. I think we saw Rosie Duffield this week was talking about what Labour MPs feel and about the idea of rejoining. So there is that kind of split in values, I think, in various parts of the country. So it will still be around. But I think the main thing is people just want to see positive change in their communities. A lot of these towns, poorer areas, in terms of skills, highly paid jobs and so on, they're not necessarily there. PM talks a lot about levelling up, and it's not just about infrastructure, it's about being positive and talking up areas. So if we can show people that we can actually have some genuine change and improve their lives, I think they'll appreciate that and they'll stick with us.
Okay, well, that's 4 years to level up. Precisely what that might mean, I think we'll see. But I concede you've got 4 years to do that, or 3 now maybe. But that barking you might just have heard on the line, that barking belongs to Gloria De Piero's dog. And
right.
Gloria's on the line. I want to bring her in on this. I think she wasn't just doing that to try and intimidate you, but I want to bring Gloria in because Gloria, of course, was a Labour MP until December 2019. She stood down, but her seat went to the Tories as well, like yours did, of course. Her constituency, Ashfield, almost next door to yours. And Gloria, do you think Brendan is right about this? Has there been a seismic shift? You're broadcasting from Ashfield with your dog as we speak. Is he right?
When you said that barking you can hear is Gloria De Piero, I wondered if you were going to add dog onto the end of that. Hi, Brendan. What you said really resonated with me because, of course, I was knocking on doors when I was the MP throughout Brexit, throughout the election of Jeremy Corbyn, and the number of lifelong Labour voters who would say to me, never, ever again, you're finished. I thought the Labour Party may have further to fall, but let me tell you this, I'm still here in this former mining town and I go on my dog walks. I am struck by the number of those lifelong Labour voters who switched to the Tories who say to me on my dog walks, it's done now, yeah, fine, going back to Labour. That's it. It's striking. Does that worry you? Do you pick up any sense of that? Or is Ashfield weird?
I think people are just generally fed up with the pandemic, and I don't think that helps. But yeah, Gloria, I suppose we had all these plans, and some of them have had to be put on the back burner. So there is the worry that they go back. But I think in terms of those social values, and obviously Keir Starmer's in charge now, will he be able to take the party back in that direction? I think the dilemma that the Labour Party have probably got now is that if they do try and win those red wall voters back, they then have a conflict in the more urban seats where they are. So, which side of the fence do they go on? And I think if you look at the votes on the deal last week, there was a bit of tension with that as well. So it is going to be difficult for them. I think with the Conservatives, with us, we're having those battles about various bits of funding and, again, the levelling up thing about the North and the South that's been discussed quite a bit, whereas Labour Party, it's more those social values. What's going to happen with that now? So I think the next election, it won't necessarily be fought on that. It will probably be fought on those societal values.
Brendan, I have to tell you, my Zoom link that's up and running with Gloria, she broadcasts from Ashfield now. She was nodding to quite a lot of what you were saying. Quite interesting, I think. And the dog had even stopped barking as well. The dog agreed. Last question, Brendan. When you were elected, The Guardian ran an article naming you as one of the 7 most controversial new Conservative MPs. I think you made some comments on food banks and the like. My question, was that a badge of pride for you?
I was just about to say very much a badge of honour, yes. It's always nice to be acknowledged. It's probably not the way you'd want to be acknowledged, but it's probably a little bit similar to the debate we had about free school meal vouchers in the sense that Nobody's denying that people need help. We just sometimes disagree on the best way of doing that. And I think when it's one of those sort of emotive issues, sometimes you're going to get a bit of stick whatever you say. And I think maybe it's that council estate upbringing that I probably had, that they always say get your retaliation in first. So yeah.
That was our new MP. Brendan, thank you for joining us this morning. The new MP for Bassett Law, Brendan Clarke-Smith.